On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very exclusive treat. He's a dynamic, multi-platinum singer-songwriter, producer, and multifaceted, spiritually enlightened artist, just to name a few. He's competed on Dancing with the Stars and contributed to several film soundtracks, no big deal. His music has been streamed north of 1 billion times, and his hit song, Don't Give Up on Me, is a personal favorite of mine and has been blasted in my ears while crossing many marathons, most recently last month at Chicago. So thank you. He's
Love it.
just a juggernaut in all facets of life and an extraordinary human being. Please welcome the extremely talented, gritty, abundant, and powerful, handsome Andy Grammer. How you
I mean,
doing, Andy?
don't stop, dude. Keep going. That's great. I really appreciate it. Lovely to be here, my friend.
I did good by you. You feel elevated?
Oh, I feel very elevated. Yeah, you got me all warmed up.
Yeah, cool. We probably could have chatted for an hour before we hit record. Like I was saying to you, I'm genuinely a fan. So like doing homework and preparation for this was such a treat. My audience, we're about 4 million now, who might not be familiar. My best suggestion, if you don't know Andy, do a deep dive. Listen to his music, check out his content, all that stuff. What I think is most valuable today is we just have an unbelievable conversation. Before we dive in, we're gonna get a little weird. You ready for me, Andy?
It's get weird, of course.
What is your superpower?
Hmm. I think my I think my superpower is going into places that have been labeled cheesy and bringing people with me to show that it's not.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Sure, like I think a lot of my music is uplifting, and that is hard to do without being like not believable or airy fairy or pie in the sky.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a song like "Don't Give Up on Me" is not breaking any new ground. Like that's been said before. Um,
True.
and if it's not totally sincere and coming from a completely sincere place, then it falls on its face. And so going into the situation to write songs, to create content, to make interactions, I think my superpower is the ability to be completely sincere with my heart on my sleeve, which then opens me up and others up to really incredible interactions.
Yeah, that's awesome and just gripping stuff. And I acknowledge you for that because essentially you're right, right? Like it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, like a common inspirational, like a line, like don't give up on me. But first of all, the way you say it, and also like as I know you really big into energy and all that stuff, everything has a vibration, right? Like the energetic behind that, it just hits differently. And it's now that you mentioned it, like I never really thought about it this way, but it's true. Like a lot of music like that could tend to cross the line of being a bit corny, but you do a fantastic job of not making it corny and obviously penetrating the soul. So I want to acknowledge you for that, brother.
I think that that takes, as I've come to learn and get better at it, like it took me a while to get good at it. And there's just immense bravery behind that. So to put yourself out there in a way that's completely sincere to have these things work just takes a lot of courage to be yourself. That's what I've been talking about a lot. Is
Yeah.
like, man, to just to take someone there requires an energy of I'm going here because this is who I am and this is what I love. And I realize that this might fall on its face. And I think
Uh,
that I think a lot of people's superpower when they connect to it is actually just being themselves.
Wow, that's great. And like for me, it took me, I guess, 35 years to
You know
really,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
to really embrace being 100% Craig. And when I started CLS, like we were speaking before we went on air, there was no guarantee that this thing would work out. And I understood that it wouldn't be everybody's cup of tea or glass of whiskey. But
Yeah.
I made myself a promise. One thing that I could control is for the first time ever, no people pleasing, none of that. I will be 100% real, raw, and authentically me, and the right people will gravitate and the wrong people will not. Was it always like that for you, or is that something that you had to develop as well?
Yeah, I think going back to the fact that it takes courage, that means that a lot of times I maybe didn't follow my intuition or just own who I was completely. I love your story of like taking a path that maybe you felt called to in your early part of life, but maybe also had some this is what I should do in
Yes,
right.
you nailed it.
And so I
Yep.
think with music, that's the same thing. Is like a you. as an artist to make something that is just coming from you and not relating to what it's going to sound like on the radio, what it's going to sound like on TikTok, what it's going to how are we going to make this thing um how's it going to be successful, as opposed to like, what do I need to do? What do I like? There's just a lot of courage and sincerity with yourself to then make things that then you let go of and get to be judged in however they are, whatever way they're judged. But the courage that it takes to just own who you are and listen to the smaller voice that whispers, right? Like, I don't know if this podcast came out of like a huge feeling in your heart that's like, I got to do it, or there was like, that sounds kind of crazy, but like I should probably listen to it.
The
Like
latter.
it whispers. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Everybody at some point is going to hear that whisper, right? But I think most people, they maybe hear it and then they just lower the volume. But we encourage the audience, when you hear that, because sometimes that's all you get is
Yeah.
is raise the volume to that voice, right?
Yeah. And it's scary and it's wonderful. And this is the ride of life. We get to do it. Like, if it, and I think a lot of times the conversations about this happen on media. So I don't want it to be associated with like, everyone's supposed to be a rock star. Everyone's supposed to be a podcast host. It's like, no, are you getting a whisper that like you're supposed to start a lawn business because that's what you love, is to be around grass? You got
Yeah.
to listen to that, you know? Yeah.
Hell yeah. You mentioned earlier, like a lot of your music is inspirational and positive and upbeat, and that's my frequency too. Like, I'm the type of cat, and I wonder if you are. Like, I'm always looking for a message in everything:
Yeah.
movie, music, life, everything. Were you always like that too? Like, you always looking for some sort of positive silver lining?
Yeah, and I'm also just like a words first guy. So I don't know about you. When I listen to music, I hear the words immediately, and then I get around to how like what the music is doing. I think a lot of other people do it differently. They hear the music first, and then eventually figure out what the person's talking about. So I'm always drawn to the message, for sure. And I love the idea, like kind of a philosophy for life, that even struggle is there to make you stronger. Like that,
Yeah.
the whole idea of weightlifting, that this is like what we do. This is like a overarching theme of life. And when you genuinely believe that, I don't know, that to me that creates like a grounded optimism.
Yeah.
'Cause- yeah.
This is too much fun. Only negative I got going on is we don't have 10 hours to chat, but I have a feeling
Yeah.
it's just the beginning of the friendship. I heard a story that you tell, and I want to give a little context because it's so powerful. When you were getting this thing going, you didn't have as much success just yet. I think you were doing street performing and stuff like that. And you talk about it as this Braveheart moment where you just got nuts and you took a massive swing and you basically like put your stake in the ground and spoke to God. And it's like, this is what I'm doing and I ain't leaving. Can you take
Yeah.
us back to that moment?
Yeah, there's gonna be those moments too. If you're creating something, it's not like you hear the whisper and then you're like, cool, and then everything falls into place. It's
No.
like you hear the whisper, and if the whisper rings true enough to where you can't deny it, that is then what you hold and build on to go a little crazy. So I was out street performing, and I had been doing it for a while, and that day specifically, I hadn't gotten a glance, any recognition. Like, people just like walking by, not paying attention. They don't have to. It's not their job. But not $1 in my guitar case, nothing. And it's like a full 10-hour day of playing out there, just being ignored. And yeah, and then I was packed up on my crap, and I stared up at the sky, had a little bit of a shouting match with God about like, hey, I'm doing my part. Like, I'm out here, and I want the universe to know, I want the world to know that I am never leaving. So if this is what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life, I'm just letting everyone and the world and the universe and all the energy know that I'm in it for the long haul and I'm never leaving. So I'll see you tomorrow. If you want to help me out somehow, that would be great.
Yeah.
And then I went home and wrote a song called "Keep Your Head Up," which was my first like platinum single.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
And the song is classic, and the audience should download it immediately. It's awesome. But that moment, like how, like wow, you first of all, you paint an unbelievable visual. I can literally picture it. I can picture like thunder, like everything just stopping. But it's that moment when like I don't know if you ever like doubted that this was the path for you or
Yeah,
not. It
plenty.
seems like you
Ton.
did, but
Yeah.
at that moment, it's like no matter what happens, like I'm going for this or I'm going to die trying. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think that has to be there. Um, it has to come from you. So first the whisper has to come from inside you somewhere, and then you got to hear it. And then the tenacity to show up for this scary thing that you think you're supposed to do, that's got to come from you. No one else can do that.
Yeah.
And until you have moments like that, I don't know that it will happen. You might get lucky, but you need this, you need a resolve, especially at the beginning of anything. I always
Yeah.
talk about like, grew up in New York as well and love when it snowed and you want to make a snowball. And the hardest part of making a snowball is getting that initial piece together that actually sticks. So then and then you can roll it, and it kind of like, it gets bigger, like, it continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But the hardest part is to get that first little piece to stick. And I
Yeah.
find that if you're an entrepreneur, your job is to get the thing that sticks. You need to figure out like what it is you have to offer that is actually offering something to people, and that just takes a lot of resolve in
Yeah.
whatever field it is that you're doing.
This is unbelievable. And for the audience listening, I'm sure there's someone out there or a few that's like, well, what if I never heard a whisper? What would you say to that?
Um, I would say action. You'll probably find it through action.
Yeah.
Like go thinking about. I mean, look, there's a lot of ways to go about it, and I have a lot of friends. We talk about it all the time. For me personally, I just like to take a lot of action in a lot of different directions, and then
Same.
see if a whisper comes. Then I know it's not going to come just by sitting on my couch. So
100%.
like I have a feeling that music is what I want to do, and so then I start the process of like, oh, let me go check this club and see if they'll book me. And they're like, we have no idea who you are. We're not giving you no. You go somewhere else, and all the doors are locked, and the only one that's open is like literally by law. If I get this permit, you can't tell me to stop singing on the street. So, you eat your humble pie and you go like, okay, this is the only place I can go. So I'm going to go here and give 110% here to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then, throughout the process, you get these little whispers. So maybe I'm out on the street for 8 hours singing, and maybe there's a 5-minute period throughout that process where I feel the connection of, oh, this stranger is here and they're actually really liking what I'm doing. And that 5 minutes will carry me for the next, and that's where like you get the resonance of like, oh shit, this is cool. I could do this. And then they leave and it's another 4 hours of being ignored. But you're like, no, I think there's something there. I think there's a way that this eventually could work if I don't stop.
Bang. This is too much fun. And two things I want to say that. Number one, I couldn't agree more. Like everybody that's like just sitting around waiting for clarity, sometimes or a lot of the times, clarity follows action. Like you could throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks and put yourself out there and make
Yeah.
yourself available for sure. And the other thing I want to say is sometimes it seems like you had a little bit of momentum and then it was maybe a dry spell, whatever the case may be. How did you personally, because I think this is applicable for anybody, how did you personally stay elevated throughout rejection?
I feel like I loved it. Like whatever you're going after, you better love it. You better like really, really be a fan of it. And I loved music, and I loved, mostly I loved songwriting. So I loved like dissecting songs and figuring out why they worked.
Yeah.
And so I love the process of like, oh, this One Republic album is so good. I'm going to sit down with my notepad and write out like, what the hell is happening here? So it starts with a 2-bar intro, then it goes into a verse that's 4. Oh, this one's 5. Why? Why did that makes me feel weird? And then what's happening in this pre that's making the hook take off? So I'm like in love with song more than the response. And then I go out and try this stuff and no one cares. But there should always be like, if you love what you're doing and you would do it anyway, and that sounds like cliche, but I think that's what kept me going is I genuinely liked it, and there was enough tea leaves along the way and enough little interactions from people that were like, oh, that's pretty good. You're like fuzzy. Like I don't know what it is exactly you have to offer, but I can see that you have something. So here's like 50 cents, like keep going. And it doesn't have to come from a person. It can come from an interaction or experience. And there was enough of those along the way that was like, yeah, you're way far from creating something that people will like pay money to come see, but it's kind of like it teased me into it.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you have the perseverance thing, like that's something I think we can all just work on outside of anything else. Is like there were plenty of things that I tried hard at that were not my calling, and I found it out. Like I love magic. I spent like hours learning how to do magic well. And then through action, through like doing kids' birthday parties, through all that process, you realize like, oh, I mean, this is fun, but this isn't like lighting me up like crazy. So let's try something else. I'm like, I'm juggling. Let's do this. Let's try sports like an insane person and be like on the varsity basketball team and make this my life. I think if you are someone who has an allegiance to the action piece, you
Yeah.
will much quicker find your calling, the whisper that's in you.
Yeah, I love this. Like, I always like to say, marry the process, divorce the outcome. And I want to acknowledge, I love how you're a gladiator. Like, you step into so many different arenas and you see like what you feel called to. It's so relatable to me. Um,
I'm at the point where if I'm not in action, I'm very uncomfortable.
yep.
Just like you want to be, I call it like we all have friends. I don't know. You seem like you work out. Uh, you have the friends that like are militant and super consistent about their workouts. And I am not that physically, but I am pretty intense about fighting fear and jumping in with creativity at a high clip. Like
Being mentally fit.
yeah, really mentally and creatively fit. And the other piece that I would say is that just like I know these are like basic building blocks, but the perseverance and then the consistency thing is really important. So people a lot of times now will go like, "Hey man, I want to be a songwriter. What should I do?" And like my quick answer, which tells me everything, is like go write 100 songs. Just go write 100 songs. If you call me in a year and say that you've written 100 songs, I'll be like, "Oh, this girl's real." If you don't do that, then I don't think you're real.
You don't really want it. You're
I,
interested
I
in
would
it.
rather you write 100 shitty songs. Like make shitty art is what I tell a lot of people. Like just
Hell
get
yeah.
into the process where you're a doer as opposed to not doing. And I think a lot of what um, leads to not doing is just fear. We're just afraid to give up the potential of what we think we are. We're terrified to start and create something that is not good because that would blow up this like safe idea of what we think we could be if we start the process.
But
So like
that's really our ego, right? Keeping us playing small.
that's ego. So if you're trying to create something, I would give up, get into the process of giving up expectation of what you think you are if you haven't done it yet, and just let that all go and just start making shitty art, a shitty business, a shitty like for me that helps. That helps like unlock it, and I can go like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna start, and I know that by starting and going, then I have something that can now be steered. Like you can't. The other thing I like to say is like you can't steer something that's not moving. You can't even steer it.
Ooh.
It's stuck. So if I start moving, then I'm going and I can go like, oh, I'm moving in the wrong direction. I think it's way over there. And then I like turn the wheel and keep moving. But if you're not taking action every day and moving forward, you're really you're not helping yourself out.
This is
And then I want to get to the
unbelievable.
reason. I'll like say it again. The reason that you're not taking action is because you don't want to give up this fantasy of what you think you will be. You don't want to trade in your reality for the fantasy. And the reality is where the bubble pops and goes like, oh, look, I have a sense that I'm a good songwriter. I feel like I would be really good at that. And then I write one and it's terrible. So now I have to deal with the actual reality of where I am. And I think a lot of people don't get started because they are afraid to deal with the reality of where they're at.
When you mentioned reality, I couldn't help but think of like the Matrix, like plugged in, like this is it, right? And then the fantasy would be like being unplugged and seeing a whole new world of possibilities, right? And not being plagued by what could go wrong, and instead thinking, well, what can go right?
What can go right? I think we're afraid of our limits. And I think like, oh man, the only way you move your limits, the only push your limits further is by like going and finding what they are and like taking an action and being like, whoa, I thought I was way better at this than I was. My limit is actually way close. And I need to like become friends with my limits and go like, oh, this is where I am currently. What are the steps I need to take to push these limits further out, further, 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 further. And so, yeah, just so much can happen from being a doer, like allegiance to action is like really important.
And I think consistency is actually a superpower. And you mentioned earlier, like find what you love. It's so funny because until I made this reinvention, I used to always hear people say, find what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And I used to be so skeptical. I'm like, right, it'll always be a job. And now, while I'm doing this, people are always like, "What are you on?" And I'm like, "Trust
Yeah.
me, I spent a good amount of time being unfulfilled and miserable. I love this stuff. Like, this isn't work to me. Get to connect with you, and have a couple culture calls later, and a sponsorship meeting, all this stuff. Like, I can't get enough of it,
Yeah.
straight up. And people always ask about like burnouts, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this. Like, I can't picture me getting burned out doing this because I just love it so much.
Yeah.
I often think people get burnt out because they're doing something that they're not in love with, or they're not in alignment with. Like, can you get enough of this stuff of what you're doing?
Um,
I know it's good to take breaks too and rest.
you can definitely like, I think that there's different pieces of it that are hard. Like I love making art, running a business I've developed a love for, but yeah, I can definitely burn out. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, definitely
Simple
happening.
answer.
Yeah, like figuring out what the best way is to be healthy and stay. I can get a little obsessive and like not and just not stop. So I've had to find a way to like find my healthy balance with it all. Yeah.
Yeah, and on that point, I know you're a people person and you're a bit of an extrovert. The pandemic was kind of the opposite. We were forced to be and to spend a lot of alone time.
Yeah.
How did you personally make the most of that opportunity?
Well, I really spun out hard. So, but that
Really?
was actually part of making the best of it was I realized how much I don't like to be alone, how much was going on inside me that I had been kind of like staying busy to avoid. And
Hmm.
man, got into therapy, got into some like really awesome groups and it's been really, really great. Like I really appreciate it. Now, because of getting depressed during that time, I have now been able to be like an advocate for mental health in a couple really cool spaces. Like I got to go speak at the Mental Health of America conference, done a couple
Yeah.
PSAs about it. I think there's something really sweet and important about someone that makes music like me and is seen as really happy to share. Like, nah, I was super depressed. Like everybody can get depressed, especially through a dark pandemic time.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I'm really grateful for it. I just reached the place where I was grateful for it. Now, for a lot of the period of time, I was like,
Sure.
man, this is brutal. I hate this. This is so brutal. Yeah.
But isn't it crazy how, like, when you're going through it, of course, you can never really connect the dots looking forward, only backwards, but you were actually being qualified. Now you can speak on this because you've been through it, got to the side, and now you can help so many people.
Totally. Totally. It's been really sweet. I've kind of to your point, like it was a really wonderful life-changing experience that I don't think I would have done. Life was going too fast and too um like working too well from outside perspectives and I was like agreeing with the outside perspective as opposed to just like dealing with what was happening inside me.
Yeah, I love that, and it's so true. And a lot of people, you know, didn't make the most of that opportunity, or a lot of people might have regressed and so forth. But I think that everything happens for us, and if you look hard enough, like you always find the message. There's an opportunity for growth in everything, specifically situations like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a song which is called Wish You Pain, which is kind of an aggressive title, but like the idea it comes from this really sweet spiritual quote by one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Abdul Baha, and it just talks. The whole quote goes down like the captain of the ship that's been in the most storms is the best captain, and the tree that is like pruned the most grows the highest. And so, from a place of loving you, strange it is that I love you, and still I'm happy that you have sorrow. And I I like put out that song. I did meet and greets where everybody shared what they'd gone through and then what it turned them into, what they grow into, and like owned their difficulties and showed how what that they are now their superpowers. And I did that for a year, and it like had such an effect on me. But even so, when my big one came in the pandemic, I was still just like, "Yo, this sucks. Get me out of here." Like it doesn't the knowledge of this still sometimes doesn't help. It's still sometimes you just got like mud you got to walk through to get the lesson.
Sure. Yeah, just like life.
Yeah.
I want to pivot for a second. I know you absolutely love this specific poem, Magic, and I want to ask you about that. Why do you love that? Why is that message so important to you?
Oh, wait, can you which one of the ones that I put out?
It's a poem called Magic.
Yes.
I heard you talking about it one time and you were so passionate about it. I'm not sure if you wrote it or where it
I
came
did. I wrote it. I don't know if I have it up on the screen right here, but I think
from.
it's
That would
like
be awesome.
let me see if I can find it. Um I've like getting into poetry pretty hard and
Cool.
uh and I actually start my shows with like a long poem. Oh, this one says Magic. Dreamer, I would like to request some magic, please. And then the universe responds,
Yes.
have your actions far exceeded your words? And the dreamer says, no. And the universe says, have you failed spectacularly yet still continue? And the dreamer says, no. And the universe says, my dear child, we give magic in the middle, not in the beginning.
Mhm.
I
You
love
wrote
that.
that?
Yeah.
That's special.
Yeah. Just going along this idea of like, man, have you acted in huge ways? Have you acted in huge ways and failed spectacularly? That's when it comes. That's when that's when the magic starts to happen. Like it takes that. Yeah.
You got to get inside the arena.
You got to get in the arena. That's another one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great stuff.
Yeah.
Another thing that you said, which is so relatable to me, is, and we kind of spoke about it with that Braveheart moment, but like, we got to get a little crazy and claim that we're here for more than we're currently doing to get to that level to really serve big. I had that moment at the beginning of the pandemic. It seems like you've had it. How important is that for the people out there that feel called, but they're not yet necessarily fulfilling their assignment or potential?
Yeah, just the basic thing of if you want different results, you need different actions. And if you're going to if you're going to make a shift, you're going to do something that is different and answer this little whisper inside of you. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel strange. It's going to feel like you're taking huge steps that are scary. And that's just kind of knowing that that's a part of the process is helpful when you feel so strange.
Yeah.
Like I was 20, 22, 23, heading out to street perform. And I have other friends that are like have careers. Like other like some people I went to college with in Binghamton have like jobs at banks. Other people have like you're getting your 401k stuff, and I'm literally being ignored. I'm being ignored on the street. So I don't want to be like just recklessly encouraging people to go,
Sure.
make crazy decisions. But I do want to let you know that if you want to create something of your own, that is in there. That's a part of the process. And so to kind of be okay with it and be aware of it and know that it's coming, um, give into it, you know.
Yeah. That's beautifully said, and it's so
Which is
true. Like,
scary. I would say the same thing for faith. The idea of faith is that it's like it's leaving logic, which is scary because now you can have other pitfalls which are terrifying. When you're leaving something that feels like logical, it's just a little bit scary, you know.
this is really important stuff, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because people always ask me like, weren't you scared to start CLS? Like, you had 300 Instagram followers at the time. You had a stable job on Wall Street, and the truth of the matter is I got to a point where I was petrified to go back and choose to be unhappy. Whereas taking a shot at this, even if it didn't work out, I could live with that. And
Yeah,
I know that I'm resourceful and adaptable, that I'll figure some things out and at least get some wisdom. And people always ask me like, how did you do it? And I, again, I don't want to be responsible for people, but what I needed to do personally is burn the ships and really go all in and be available for all this stuff.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. You gotta. There's a point, especially at the beginning of stuff, where you have to take massive action.
Massive
You gotta
action.
really go for it. Yeah,
Yeah. And like you said, would you
but
say
and I don't think that
spectacular
necessarily.
failure?
Again, I don't think massive action means massive results.
No.
So like I think you have to be okay with massive action and no results. And then check yourself and be like, is this still what I love? And if the answer is yes, then like take more massive action.
Yeah.
Uh, that is the hardest part is when you are, all right, I'm gonna make my whole life street performing. That's a massive action. I'm gonna pay my rent by people putting dollars in my guitar case. That is a massive, intense action, and it didn't work very well for 4 years. So like but I loved it. I love going home and like writing a song. Be like, I'm gonna try this one on the street tomorrow, and then I get out
That was
there,
part of the journey.
try the journey. Oh, this doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let me try again. I always like to say too, like through action. I'll give you an example of like steering
Please.
through action. Is I start street performing, and I first went out with a friend because we sang really good in harmony. So we would sing covers in harmony, and that was enough to be like, oh, they're good. Like our harmony was really good. And so we'd make like $50 a day together. And then he went to go start an internet company, and he left the first of the 4 years. And then the second year was so gnarly because I didn't have my like trick. I didn't have this harmony thing that we did really well, and
Yeah.
I got ignored and just was like playing covers by myself, and no one cared, and they weren't working. but I just kept going. And so I tried like at the time I think like Hey There Delilah was working. It was like a big hit. So I'd like play Hey There Delilah and nothing. And then I play like Michael Jackson, nothing. I'd play like all these covers because my song and I play my songs too, but nobody cared they were bad. And then I played Sunday Morning by Maroon 5 and it like struck a little bit of a chord. Like my voice over Sunday Morning in the way that I was singing it, people would stop. And then now that I had a crowd, I'd be like, awesome, you're all here. And I'd play one of my originals and everybody would leave. So then you go like, okay, cool. Let me try to write 25 songs that are similar to Sunday Morning in my voice, figuring it out. And you like follow it. And then I wrote Keep Your Head Up, kind of trying to write my version of Sunday Morning, like sound wise vibe. And that's what eventually worked. But even in that process, like the process of I want to be a rock star, cool. Well, I go out, no one likes me at all or anything that I'm doing. So I'm going to keep going and driving my little bus here and steering through this process to figure out like, oh, now I have one cover that is serving people and all my other crap is bad. And now I extrapolate on that and try to write a bunch of songs and they get better and better and better. Keep taking steps. Keep taking steps and listening to yourself.
That's a 6 or 7 or 8-figure idea right there for the audiences. And like, first of all, thank you for really pulling back the curtain and being vulnerable and telling us that story. Like sometimes you don't have to be a pioneer, you just have to disrupt, right? And like you saw something that was working, you kind of made it your own. And then you experimented and you saw what people gravitated towards. And you collected data.
You're collecting data. It's just a process of like what it is that you have to offer. You know, what's the problem that you are solving for people? And I think there's so much pressure that we put on ourselves to be the one that knows that answer. And I think you can get there so much faster if you just go do the thing that you are saying you want to do. Because if you just go do it badly, you'll quickly realize, one, I actually don't want to do this. Two, oh, I do want to solve this problem. I'm just currently supremely unequipped to solve the problem that it is I say I want to solve. So now I get to go like, okay, what is bad about me? Step one, my voice is not very good, to be completely honest, when I started. My guitar playing is not very good, and my songs are not very good. Cool, there's a lot to work on here. Let's get back into the lab and start like figuring it out. And continually making songs and bringing them back out and trying them, and they get better and better and better and better.
Yeah, beautifully said. You sang the national anthem at the World Series?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Dude, so fun and just one of the hardest songs to sing. It's great.
Yeah.
I loved it. I had a really good time.
What was the vibe like, the crowd? You know, going nuts?
They were super, it was Texas. They were super into it. It was awesome. Yeah.
So cool.
I got to bring my dad and my brother. I mean, no one was interested because we're huge Yankee fans, but.
Good.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Hell yeah. You got a lot of exciting things going on right now. Very dynamic and multifaceted. Of all the things that have going on, what are you most excited about right now?
You know, it's funny because the core thing that I'm most excited about always is songwriting. Like I just love the process and this weird, like unexplainable dynamic between wherever they actually come from. And I'm just always addicted to the process of like, oh, this is what I'm going through in my life. And I want to create something that relates to other people. And now I will call in whatever the creative spirit is. I don't know how this works, but I will open myself up to it and play around with it. And sometimes what comes out is incredible and sometimes it's terrible, but I love that process. So there's like a lot more songs coming.
Hell yeah. And a lot more poems?
Yeah. Yeah, the poetry is really cool because I feel, like I say, I always start with lyric and there's only so much complexity that you can take in. Yeah. So as a songwriter, especially a pop songwriter, you're always balancing like, all right, how much, where is the complexity coming from? Is it coming from the lyric? Is it coming from the music? Is it like a weird chord? Is it subdivisions in the bass notes or like where is it all? And you're doing this math like kind of subconsciously to figure out like what's the best way this is going to hit you. And to take everything away and just have it all be on the words, like opens up a lot of complexity that you can get into just with words.
Yeah.
I love that there's a higher risk to it too. Like if it flops live, that's terrible. Like almost like stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Like it's terrifying. to be like, I'm just going to start with a poem, especially when people aren't necessarily expecting it. It kind of creates this like tension that then, if it works, it like really explodes in a cool
Everybody
way.
goes nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
When you were speaking about that, you were lit up. You're just jazzed. It's very
yeah.
it's contagious.
It's really we just want to relate to each other. There's like so much depth going on underneath our day to day, and I think that we've all experienced going to a concert or listening to a song in our car and having it take us deeper in ourselves. And that to me means like that's unbelievable. That means that I'm not just like playing a piano. I'm like making Harry Potter potions to then
Yes.
send out to people to take them deeper into themselves. When it works, it doesn't always work. But when it does work, that's like, whoa, I am so grateful to be on earth and get to do that. That is so sick.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Like the fact that I'm so sincere. The fact that you tell me that you're running a marathon and then one of my songs is like a little hand on your back pushing you forward.
100%.
I feel so close to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, that first of all, I would say to the audience right now, like download Andy's music immediately if you're not familiar. Like it moves you, right? And that's what music should do, in my opinion. Like not just hear it, but it moves you. Like it's a frequency, and you're unbelievable at that.
Oh, thank you.
And like I get really into like a singer. Like like a lot of people have good music, but then there's certain singers like, oh, that's my people. Like when I listen to them, I'm immediately elevated, and you've made that impact on me straight up. So I want to say thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, man. It's really sweet. We're all super connected.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It genuinely is amazing.
Yeah, we'll land the plane with this, Andy. I know you're a spiritual cat, and you
Yeah.
mentioned a couple times in this conversation. It's funny because I was always skeptical of the stuff that I couldn't see. I was big on mindset and all that, and do, and over the last year and a half, I've really started to understand, be, and allow, and manifest. And for the first time in my life, like I'm facilitating real time manifestations and stuff. I'm wondering how big you are into that stuff, and if there's any suggestions that you could give to the audience to really start getting into that and bringing about manifestations.
Manifesting. Interesting. I mean, I've definitely done vision boards. I think that's really
Yes,
like awesome and cool. Me and my manager did it at the very beginning, and then we've done it like every 2 or 3 years consecutively. I think there's something
just to
really
update it. Yeah,
updated and in different facets. Like in the beginning, it was just like, all right, we want a tour bus, we want a top 10 single, we want a tour that sells out, we want these things. I think there's something about setting that intention in yourself, kind
yep,
of like I was saying about when I was speaking to the sky on the street, of like, it's really helpful to get specific. If you say like, I just want to be successful, it's like, cool. I don't know where to put any of my laser beam if that's my thing.
it's
Like,
a little
I want to
vague.
be, just go crazy. I want to be an astronaut. Okay. Do you know how to get there? What now we're talking. Now it's like, all right, what are the things that astronauts are? How do I get good at those things? How do I get better at it? And it also kind of creates some accountability with yourself that you're like, it reminds me of this story. This great producer and friend of mine in college, we were like, we were writing a song and it was terrible. And and he said at the time, he said something like, "Oh man, this is going to be a huge, like, this is going to be incredible." And I laughed it off. And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, this is going to be incredible. This song that we're writing is going to be incredible." And he like checked me in a way. He's like, "Dude, this is what we're doing. Like we're going big with this and this is what's going to happen." And I remember like being offended and also like kind of inspired by this yeah, you're checking me on my own ability to trust that maybe this could work.
Yep.
I actually really appreciate, I still remember it to this day, of at some point, if you want to do something and you want to take it seriously, you got to own it. And you got to like, I think it's really helpful to write it down and then start going after it.
Set
So
that
I
intention.
think manifesting can be really, I don't even know exactly what the definition of that is, but that's how
Yep.
I've used it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And I agree. Like once you have an idea, it's a possibility, right? But then you take some action, immense action, as you like to say, now it's a probability, right? Because you can't hit a
Mm.
target you can't see. You set those intentions, and then you can kind of allow it, and things start to come into pieces. But if you don't have an intention, like you mentioned, success, that's a little vague. I want to be an astronaut. That's more specific.
Totally. One of my favorite things, I was just like at the gym, and there's a guy who's making the smoothies, and he's got incredible energy, and I'm like, I just want to big him up all the time. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing in your life? Like, what's happening? Well, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you want? He's like, I just want to like, I think it's really important to be successful. Like, I want to make a bunch of money. And I was just like, that answer is fair, but I would say, what are you, what are you specifically gifted with that's going to solve a problem? Get really clear on like your uniqueness. How can your uniqueness solve a problem? And then the bigger problem that you were able to solve for the community, for the world, for everybody, that will turn into something great.
And the irony is when you're energetically behind something like that, the money's just an energetic exchange. It'll come.
Yeah, yeah. I never make decisions chasing. I tried not to. I think if my track record, it would be more based on what lights me up, as
Yeah.
opposed to like what's going to make money or how's this going to work. It comes. I promise it comes. If you're here on
I-
Earth doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're excited and you're lit up about it, like it'll come. I promise.
It has no choice. And ironically, I'm making more money now than I made on Wall Street unapologetically. It's just a benefit of all the impact that we're making. But I didn't set out to do this for the money. I just wanted to extend the reach and make an impact and fulfill what I thought my assignment was.
Yeah,
And so it comes. I wanted to ask you this. You mentioned earlier, like if someone says that they're interested in being a singer-songwriter, and you're just like, all right, go write 100 songs and come
yeah.
back to me. And somebody does it, right? Can you teach desire, or you think you got to be born with that?
I think
And
it's
when I say
more.
desire, I mean like that maniacal drive, like you have, like I have.
I think it's more courage than desire. I think that desire is cool, but I know a lot of people that have real desire to go do something, but their fear stops them from trading in where they are to where they imagine themselves being.
Ooh,
Like that is the big, big leap that I would say I see between people that are living in their passion and their dream and people that are dreaming about it.
yeah.
Is this inability to own where they actually are and just start working on that and give up this fantasy of their potential. I definitely did it. I 100% did it. And then I hit a point where I remember being like, this literally is burning my insides. I can't do this anymore about saying that I'm going to be a musician or that I'm going to try. So I'm just going to go make a shitty EP. I have to do it. I don't want it to be shitty. I want it to be incredible. I want it to win Grammys. I want to do all this stuff. But I would rather take action and trade in this version that I think I will be for where I'm at and just start the process. And so I'd say if you are on the edge right now of something and you feel a calling, you hear a whisper, um, be so brave. I trust you. I believe in you. The world is going to go so much better for you if you're able to just own where you're at.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I landed and asked you that question, because that was a paradigm shift for me. The way you described that, like if you're not where you want to be, maybe it's not a lack of desire, or effort. Maybe it's just that you're not brave enough. You don't have the courage to just get over that hump, right? Sometimes all it takes is 20 seconds of courage, and then bang, the universe
Yeah.
opens a door. The universe likes that.
Oh, the universe loves that. And along that path, let's not lie, like you're going to fall on your face. There's no way around it. This
100%.
pathway, I did a halftime show in the NFL, like Vanity Fair, like worst halftime show ever. Like boom.
Really?
Like you get like that shit will happen.
It's
Like
inevitable.
it's not like okay, cool, we're encouraging you to jump off a ledge and you're just going to like fly.
No.
All we're saying is the only way that I understand is periodic, is like lots of consistent action with periodical like huge jumps.
Yeah, and not to scare anyone, but if you're going to take some massive swings in this beautiful thing that is life, be comfortable with having some massive misses.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just yeah, the biggest thing is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I just, if there's one thing I can tell everybody, whether you're an artist, you're an entrepreneur, you're in business, is I consistently ask myself when I'm in tension, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? And I try to follow that.
That's what we're landing the plane.
Yeah.
You're awesome. This is too much fun. The audience.
Thank you, my friend. I feel like I grew up with so many people and I've lost a lot of my accent. So this is wonderful. I just did like a great high school hang. I appreciate you.
I think it's just the beginning, brother. I say very humbly, the show is exploding. We're at 4 million now. They're very loyal and engaging. What's the best way, Andy, for all of them to support you?
Yeah, go check me out on Spotify. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all the stuff. You can find on a lot of that. I have a texting service that I love to use because I run around the country and stuff, and we'll
Yeah,
text out and be like, meet me at this donut shop in 20 minutes, and like everybody comes. It's really fun. So
yeah.
just come get engaged with me. I would love it. Check out some of my music. That would make me happy.
How can I personally support you?
Um, I think you just did, dude. I think you had me on. I appreciate it. Thanks for bigging me up. That intro was about as good as it gets.
Yeah, wait for the outro. Hang out for 1 second. I just want to chat with you after.
Of course.
And I want you to know you the definition of perspective, emotional intelligence, and growth. From taking your experience and spreading positivity, light, and deep truths. You're a true gladiator, visionary, role model, and beacon of hope for anybody coming up to their big goals and aspirations. I could personally guarantee your best yet to come. Keep on spreading your wings and leaving your mark on this world. So much love and respect for you. Thank you so much for stopping by and dropping these priceless nuggets today.
Nuggets. Thank you, dude. I love you.
That was too much fun, brother.
Awesome, man. Great to meet you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, let's stay connected.
Yeah, of course, dude.
You're active on Instagram?
Yeah, totally. Hit me up. I'll hit you back.
Yeah, I'll hit you up in like 10 minutes.
Okay, great.
And if you ever come to New York sooner than later, maybe grab a cup of coffee if you're not on a crazy schedule.
I would love it, man. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, cool. Thank you again, brother. Have a great day.
You too, dude. I'll see you soon.
Bye, Andy.